America's tax system is broken. You've heard that before. That desperately we need the system fixed. Fixed, rebuilt, made accountable. There's a lot that needs to happen with the system. But broken? No. What if I told you that the tax system isn't broken at all? That it's working exactly how those in power want it to work? The first step toward truth is to be informed.
First of all, let me give you some statistics.
Barry Segal started Bradco Supply Company, a roofing material distributor, back in 1966. After 30 years, his sales peaked at $1.9 billion. When he retired,
he started the Segal Family Foundation, which gives away about $12 million every year to organizations that address health, education, and increase the level of employment across sub-Saharan Africa.
A few years later, he started a second foundation, which strives to ensure that all individuals have the information they need to make the best decisions about their family's health.
The U.S. has by far the most complex income tax system in the entire world. And at the end of the day, most observers think that this really complicated tax system doesn't work for anybody.
Well, the driving idea behind tax reform, every 4 years during the presidential elections, there are a lot of conversations about changing an overly complicated system.
I want to get rid of carried interest and some other things.
And the money is with people who've taken advantage of every single break in the tax code.
Our goal must be to create a financial system and an economy that works for all of our people, not just a handful of billionaires.
We need to move to a simple flat tax.
We asked Barry Segal what he thinks of the flat tax.
I don't see any meaningful loopholes that will be eliminated in Ted Cruz programs. All it does is reduce taxes for the wealthy on a theory it will create jobs. I see many more loopholes that should be dealt with, and all you're doing is changing a progressive tax to a regressive tax, and not generating any funds that are really needed.
Well, every 4 years, politicians from every party say they want to change the tax system, but it never really changes. Well, why is that? Is it possible that nothing changes because for a few people, the system is working exactly how it's supposed to? Since the Great Recession of 2008, the top earners in America, and we're not talking about the top 1%, we're talking about the top 1/10 of 1%, have watched their wealth grow and far outpace the rest of America. This is an issue that Senator Bernie Sanders raised repeatedly during the presidential election.
What we have seen in recent years is a huge transfer of wealth from the middle class to the top 1/10 of 1%, whose percentage of wealth in America has doubled.
The tax code is way too complicated. There are a bunch of special interest provisions that are put in by lobbyists who are pretty successful at getting the tax code modified. We could greatly simplify the tax code.
The complexity of the tax system is a major problem. I mean, it has become a monstrosity of 76,000 pages. It's full of loopholes. It measures income in many different ways.
Simplify the tax code? Yeah, you would think that would be something we could all agree upon, right? The reason we can't agree, though, is because a simple tax code, while more fair, doesn't benefit those who have power. Let me explain. When we say taxes, that can mean a lot of different things. So to be clear, we're talking about federal income taxes at this point. The largest percentage of income tax is paid by a small number of wealthy people, and the higher the income, the more those individuals pay. Right? Well, not necessarily. Just because the largest amount of income tax paid comes from wealthy individuals does not mean that these same individuals are paying the largest percentage of their income in taxes. The best way to illustrate this is to help you understand what the U.S. has. It's called a progressive income tax system. That essentially means that the more you make, the higher the percentage of your income you pay. But the progressive system falls apart when super PACs influence politicians and they create tax loopholes. The Atlantic Monthly explains the system by looking at the wealth of Warren Buffett. In 2015, Buffett's adjusted gross income was about $11 million, on which he paid roughly $2 million in income taxes. It is a lot of money. But get this, in 2008, Warren Buffett became the single richest man in the world with a net worth of $65 billion. And if we're comparing income, then more than 10,000 U.S. households in 2015 actually reported more income than Buffett did. How's that possible? In the past 5 years, his company, Berkshire Hathaway's value has increased from $39 billion to $65.5 billion. That is according to Forbes. That's an increase of more than $5 billion per year. According to the tax code, however, that $5 billion per year does not exist. When the stock goes up in value, the increase does not count as income until that stock is sold. That allows Buffett and other extremely rich investors to defer paying taxes on stock appreciation, effectively reducing their tax rates. Well, moreover, there are serious health implications to the way the tax system is structured. The World Health Organization has made clear that within any given country, health inequality is a direct effect of economic disparity. The CDC agrees.
Social determinants of health are mostly responsible for the unfair and very avoidable differences
in health status seen within and between countries. The poor health of the U.S. really shouldn't surprise anyone. America's top 10% now averages nearly 9 times as much income as the bottom 90%. Even worse, the nation's top 0.1% takes in over 184 times the income of the bottom 90%.
In a Commonwealth Fund report recently released, the U.S. ranked last compared to other developed nations in maternal death, infant mortality, and preventable deaths, and second to last in the category of healthy years. What most people miss is that in the same study, we rank last in health equity. About 40% of adults with below average incomes in the United States reported a medical problem but did not visit a doctor in the past year because of the cost. It's a very different story in the United Kingdom, Sweden, Canada, and Norway, where less than 1 in 10 didn't see a doctor. These discrepancies are directly related to an individual's wealth. And we're not just talking visiting a doctor. These discrepancies are also present when we talk about wait times for U.S. adults waiting to see a specialist, get emergency and after-hour care. The bottom line, the higher the income, the shorter the wait times.
In 2001, George W. Bush signed the first of his tax cuts into law. The tax plan was supposed to create middle-class jobs through the supposed trickle-down effect. The problem is it didn't work, at least not for 99% of the population. The average tax cut for the top 0.1% of Americans, that was around 450 times the tax cut received by the average middle-class family. The bottom 20% of Americans received only 1% of these tax cuts. As a matter of fact, 75% of low-income families saw no tax benefit at all. And that trickle-down effect they're talking about?
That's a fallacy. There is no trickle-down effect. The real picture is inverted. It's actually more of a funnel siphoning money away from the bottom and channeling more money directly into the pockets of the top 1%. Between 2002 and 2007, the top 1% had 65% of the income growth, and the poverty rate increased from 11.3% in 2000 to 14.3% by 2009. Job growth also suffered. The years between 2000 and 2007 had the weakest job growth of any business cycle since the 1950s.
Our intention is to shed some light on these unjust laws and help expose the tactics used to perpetuate wealth through legislation. Louis Brandeis, a Jewish immigrant who became an associate justice on the Supreme Court, once said this, quote, "We must make our choice. We may have democracy or we may have wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but we cannot have both." So what you need to know is that without question, the U.S. tax system is gamed. Regardless of your political affiliation, background, or status, nearly everyone can agree on that. What we have so much difficulty agreeing on is what to do about it. In our next segment, we're going to explain how those at the top, with the help of lawyers and lobbyists and politicians, have created a system of tax avoidance and what can be done about it.